We have a busy night of weather ahead of us. We've got a fire hose of rain moving up the East Coast. Flash flood watches up from the southeast all the way through the Ohio Valley and then east across to New England, and that includes all of eastern Pennsylvania to most of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. We will cover that. In the west, we've got a record heat wave continuing there. We have Hurricane Kaye on the Pacific side that might be of interest to folks in southernmost California. We'll talk about that. And Tropical Storm Earl, that will probably be a hurricane in short order. All that and much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, as they have everything you need to make sure that if adverse weather hits and you lose power, you need a new generator, you need a pump to get rid of this water that's coming down. Yeah, it is raining, believe it or not, in most places. And, of course, you want to get your yard in order for the fall. There's mulch and topsoil, and pretty soon we'll be talking salt for the winter time. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And the website is
omnitruevalue.com.
Okie dokie. So we'll make us both a little bit bigger here. Wait a second. Let me get you at the right size. And just push you back, move you down, move me up. There we go. So.
Yeah, but now I've got just your name. I don't have you.
No, give it a chance.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, that was going to be there eventually. Yeah. So here we are. It's coming to the end of as quick as the summer starts. The last holiday weekend of the summer season is now done. It's always been my theory that at this point Christmas shopping should be rushed to completion. But that's me. I like to get things done early. So, Joe, there's a lot going on, so we could, get right into weather. We finally got, it's funny, we went how many weeks, really, literally weeks and weeks of struggling at times, just trying to find different things to talk about because the weather was just so unchanging. And now we've got this, we finally got this rain that is going to be a widespread soaking rain. For most folks, there'll probably be some flood warnings in the mix too. In the east, we've got Hurricane Kaye on the Pacific side, which is going to straddle up the coast, and we'll take a look at that. Also, Earl is going to be coming. We went from having no tropical activity. Now we've just already gotten rid of two names on the tropical list. But the rain is front and center because everybody's talking about it, and nobody believes it.
Well, there's a good reason. This is the first time, at least up where I am, the first time we are seeing what I would say substantial, significant rains in about 6 to 8 weeks. This has really been a real time. I'm not talking about a brief passing shower or even a heavy thunderstorm or whatever. We're going to be looking at from now through much of the next 24 hours, Joe. I wouldn't say a constant heavy rain. Let's just say a gentle to moderate soaking rain. And it looks like before this is all over, said and done, most areas will probably have on the order of about 2 or maybe even 3 inches of rain. And that's amazing considering the lack of rain that we've had over, again, the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes, indeed. Do you have local radars to show us? I'll put the wide one up first.
Well, which one would you like to see?
All right, so let me bring up the wide one, and why don't we start? You have the New York radar ready to go. I'm going to make myself small and move, which is not an easy thing to do, considering my ego, and move it off the screen, but you can see from everybody. Welcome, by the way, tonight on the chat board. I see David Fuller is an early super chat hit. Thank you very much. Most appreciated. The rain shield on the wide radar view goes from central PA. Actually, if it's timed out pretty well. We've been waiting for this southern edge of this to kind of slide southeastward. It's reached New York City and Philadelphia. It is skimming over parts of Long Island. It's been raining rather strongly in southern New England, which is really good. Why is my hold on a second. Oh, there you go. Let me just make sure my audio was good there. Uh, it's been raining fairly heavily in parts of southern New England, which is really good because and in Rhode Island, Joe, where they've got the exceptional drought. So why don't you start with the OKX weather radar, and then you maybe go to Boston and Fort Dix and Albany.
I'd love to. Just give me the option to share.
1 second. This shall. I'm going to do that right now. Let me get you back on the screen here. And there you go. So you're all set to go. Now let's get you back up on the screen. And there.
Alrighty. So
and there you are. So you're all set.
Somebody on the chat board, when you had commented about, oh, we've got all this rain out there. Somebody on the chat board from, I guess, Long Island said, where? I don't see any of it.
It's not there yet. It's right. Oh, yeah. For whoever it was from Long Island, it's overhead on the radar. It'll be starting up shortly. So just, keep your shirt on. Or if you're female, keep your blouse on. And
you can see absolutely true. I mean, if from New York City, north and west, you see that much of the region across northern Jersey into the Hudson Valley and points north, and most, if not all, of Connecticut. And in fact, there was a time earlier on in the afternoon where there was like a broken line of heavy showers and thunderstorms across Connecticut from looked like Torrington, stretched out to near Norwalk. Anyway, you can see that's where all the rain is. And again, some of it is on the heavy side. But you folks on Long Island, you could see you're still not quite in it yet, but give it time. Give it time. And Joe, I guess you could say that for Labor Day overall, the folks who are beachgoers got their wish. They pretty much got a dry Labor Day to be at the shore. It wasn't exactly a sunny Labor Day, quite a bit of cloud cover, but at least it stayed dry. Still is dry now, but it looks like now as we move into the overnight hours, all of this stuff that you see here is going to sag southward and eventually envelop even the island of Long with some significant rainfall.
Yeah, by the way, speaking and just talking about Connecticut, I did see briefly late this afternoon a tornado warning went up for some parts of southwest Connecticut. There were some thunderstorms on Long Island about mid-afternoon that formed on the sea breeze front north of the LIE. Which was happened a couple of times during the month of August. Those came and went very quickly. The main area of rain is now sliding to the southeast. And by the way, it is amazing how the fact that we've been in such a dry pattern, this rain, this is tropical moisture. It's still, it took a while. It had to really fight that dry air as it worked its way up into New England and in parts of upstate New York. The rain shield cuts off way up in upstate New York, but even there, it's been a bit of a struggle. But the atmosphere seems to be getting to the point where it's saying, okay, you know what, it's wet enough. We got to let some of this water go. So I think we're going to come. I agree with you in terms of the forecast. I think everybody's going to wind up by the time this all winds down, sometime early Wednesday morning. Depending on where you're located, it may wind down earlier than that. But I think on average 2 inches, and there'll probably be some amounts that'll push up to 3. And the good thing about it is it's starting now, and it's going to last a good 12 to 18 hours. This is a good solid soaking rain, which is exactly what we needed. We did not need 3 inches of rain coming in a line of thunderstorms that would go through in about an hour.
No. That's now you're talking about kind of the effects like we saw last year with Ida, but that's not going to be the story. We're going to take all of this rain, 2 to 3 inches, and spread it out over again a good, over 18 or even 24 hours, and let it just soak into the ground. The initial amount probably is running off because the ground is so dry and so hard, but now in the hours to come, things will soften up a bit. And again, we needed the rain, and that's all we can say.
By the way, really quick editorial comment on your part. Was the Mets game today a 12:45 start and a home game, or were they playing in Pittsburgh?
No, they were playing in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, never mind. Some people were complaining that they canceled the Met game. Uh, and I canceled it early, so I didn't know whether they were at home. So those folks that made a big deal about the fact that they canceled the Met game, it was in Pittsburgh today. It wasn't in New York. Okay, never
Oh,
mind.
yeah. In fact, at 12:35 today, it was raining quite steadily and maybe not exactly heavily, but you could see that rain wasn't going anywhere in the immediate future. So they made a good point to cancel the game, and it's good for the Mets too because the Mets, of course, came off a tough series with Washington, and then immediately after the game yesterday, they had to get in their charter plane, fly to Pittsburgh for a game that was at midday today. At least now they were able to get a little rest, a little sleep in their hotel rooms, and not have to worry. And the game, I believe, on Wednesday, the game is going to be played as a
Day night.
A doubleheader.
Yeah. Helen Bertona was under that tornado warning. She's doing her happy rain dance, she said, but she was under that tornado warning in Redding, Connecticut at 4:45 this afternoon. Nothing happened other than heavy rains and thunder, at least where she was, so we're thankful with regards to that. And David Carter said his phone went off at 4 p.m. for the tornado warning to his south in the Redding area, and he hasn't heard anything about any kind of damage. Anthony Orr hitting super chat also. Thank you, Anthony. Most appreciated. So why don't we go to Boston and see what Boston's radar is doing?
Okay, we'll do that for you, and we'll switch off. Boston. Where are you, Boston? Where's the box?
By the way, nice crowd tonight on the show. Hope everybody had a very good, excuse me, finish to their Labor Day holiday weekend. And Pat BFD says, Joe, I-95 is closed in Rhode Island for flooding, which if you look at the Boston radar, you can see why.
Yes, look at that. Look at that. That's really, yet in the same token as all of this is happening in Rhode Island, look at Cape Cod and the islands. Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
At least for now, they're not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing.
Yeah. So they're in the same boat more or less that Long Island is in right now, which is
kind of waiting for that southern edge to drop southeastward. This is all coming behind the cold front, folks. So the cold front's coming, is moving through, and you're getting overrunning rain on the other side, and then we have a wave that's going to develop on this front overnight into tomorrow, and that's going to give the rain a second, zap of energy, especially for New Jersey, particularly South Jersey, because South Jersey may not see very much during the first part of tonight at least, and point southward. But once that wave develops, it starts to move eastward. That's when you'll probably get a second, punch of energy, which the European model shows quite well, and so does the GFS with some patches of heavy rain. And Shelly Man Studios hitting super chat. Thank you, Shelly Man, saying right now there's a rain hole over Bridgeport. It's temporary. Trust us, it's temporary. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead. You were looking at the Boston radar.
Well, yeah, not much to say except to add to what you just said, Joe. Rhode Island getting hit fairly hard. Still some areas of moderate and heavy rain over Connecticut. Boston seeing some light to moderate rain. And again, the only place here is Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. They're out in the clear, out in the dry area right now. But that will change again in the coming hours as all of this stuff. Right now, you can see the movement is more or less from west to east or west southwest to east northeast. But this whole area eventually is going to slowly but surely droop southward. And as it does, it will envelop not just Long Island, but also Block Island and Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod as well. So if you don't have any rain yet, or if you don't have much in the way of rainfall, just wait a little while longer. It will eventually get to you.
All right, let's go to Albany and see what the state capital is doing, because there is actually For areas around Chuck Cardillo land and the Catskills and points north and east of there, there's some patches of moderate to heavy rain going on in the Hudson Valley.
And you can see it. Here's Albany up here, and they just apparently have gone through a period of moderate rainfall, moving again to the east-northeast. Much of the Hudson Valley is enveloped in rain. This is the wettest radar I have seen
in
for the
weeks.
lower Hudson Valley in weeks. Yes, at least 6, 7, 8 weeks. It has been a long time in coming. The folks who live to the north, let's say north of Saratoga up in the Adirondack region, they are pretty much dry. I mean, it's probably very cloudy up there, and there are a few showers, but nothing to compare what's going on right now here in the Capital District, or even down in the Leatherstocking District, what they call Central New York State, places like Elmira, for example, or Horseheads, Binghamton, that area. They too are getting hit with some pretty good rainfall as well. And again, this is going to be ongoing for at least the next day or so.
All right, now one more for you, Fort Dix. Let's check out what's going on in southern New Jersey and in eastern Pennsylvania with all of this.
Well, as you can see, New Jersey, aside from places that I guess are to the north of I-78, everywhere else points south. Central New Jersey and South Jersey, pretty well dry, bone dry right now. In Pennsylvania, most of the PA is in rain except for the extreme southern and eastern sections, let's say around the Philadelphia area, down toward Wilmington, Delaware, and over toward, well, now even Amish country here is getting into the rain. So you could see that Pennsylvania is pretty well wet. Again, a good part of New Jersey still dry. So is Delaware, and also eastern sections of Maryland as well. And again, this is all progressing. The main area or the main region of rain is progressing to the east-northeast. But again, overall, the overview is that all of this precipitation is eventually going to sag southward. So even in places like South Jersey, by later tonight and tomorrow morning, there too will be on the wet side as well. Imagine if it was in the wintertime and people were waiting for heavy snow or significant snow. Where's the snow, Joe? You know.
I mean, I don't remember the last time that we had. I've seen so much energy. People were commenting today on social media in ways that they comment when it's snowing, and not when it's raining.
Yeah.
It's sort of like manna from heaven, and I mean, and don't want to minimize the fact that it has been, literally bone dry for this summer. And the thing is, if you look at some of the station statistics, depending on where the station location is, if they were lucky enough to be in areas of thunderstorms, their rainfall amounts might look normal. So but those were the exceptions really, and not the rule. If you looked at the general area, it's just, it was just bone dry. Now, I want to just lay a little attention because there were flooding rains yesterday in northwest Georgia on the order of 6 to 10 inches worth, north and west of Atlanta. Much of that is now, there's just some showery rains that have been going on. Now, I had about a couple of inches of rain overnight into this morning, and it's been sort of on and off. It's been more off than on this afternoon, and this is into the evening.
I just brought up Atlanta, Joe.
Oh, you did? Okay. Let me get it back. Let's get you back. 1 second. Let's go to the. There you go. And
as you just said, it's not a solid zone like what we have here in the Northeast, but there are areas flashing in orange and red, indicating that if you happen to be underneath one of those singular cells of rain or convection, you probably are getting a very hard or heavy amount of rain in a short interval of time. But again, it's widely scattered, but it's still there. It's not entirely, dry. You still have precip to deal with in parts of northern and central Georgia especially. But again, nothing to compare with what we have currently or ongoing here in the Northeast.
Right. We also have and I'll take it back from here because I know you've got your voice issues today, so give you a little bit of a rest here. So I'll bring up the radar, the wide shot here, the radar. The rains get there's more patchy once you get south and west of, say, Washington D.C., Baltimore, and you see there's rain back in West Virginia, Southwest PA, across Southern Virginia, some patches across North Carolina. I mean, all of this is sliding to the northeast, and what's happening, if you look down in central PA, just look north, south, and down in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, you'll see that the echoes are kind of filling in here. So that's what's going to happen as we go through the next 4 or 5 hours. And for central and South Jersey, as Joe showed you on the local radar, it's still pretty much dry. That's all going to fill in. It's just going to take some time. And especially for South Jersey and down into Delaware, it might not be till well after midnight before the rain shield shifts far enough to the south and east. But it is going to do that. I mean, it is, and as we said, the most important part of all of this is going to be the wave that's going to develop on this front, because that's going to energize some more rain tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon and early evening in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. And that's really where the bulk of all of this. And until that happens, the rain's going to be uneven, come down hard at times. At other times, it'll just lighten up to almost a drizzle. But there will be some periods of heavier downpours to contend with. You know, we've got showery rains down in the Gulf states. The West is pretty much bone dry. And let's go to the weather prediction folks from the Weather Prediction Center and take a look at what they're saying with regards to rainfall amounts. Now, this is through tomorrow evening. So everything in the purple is at least 1.5 inches. The blues are 1 inch to 1.25 inches. The reds are all 2.5 inches or more. And Connecticut into Rhode Island, western Massachusetts, and the Hudson Valley, all in that 2.5 inch plus zone, which is where a lot of the areas that we've seen moderate drought or even excessive drought. WPC kind of pulled back a little bit in terms of the total rainfall. I don't know exactly why. I didn't see anything in the models this afternoon that would have led me to do the same thing. But if we take a look at the 5-day totals here, this will cover all the period into Wednesday. The rainfall amounts are fairly substantial. So they had basically 2 to 3 inches for everybody with some locally higher amounts. Now they've kind of got more like 1.5 inches to 3+ inches, and they've focused their concentration there for southern New England and also just touching Long Island, the Hudson Valley. But I think that's a hard forecast to do. I mean, decide that there's going to be 1 to almost 2 inches along the coast, and then only 1 inch in some inland spots, and then back up to 2 inches in Pennsylvania. I mean, I don't want to take away from the fact that those guys do a very good job sometimes at picking out these variations. But as long as everybody winds up with at least 1.5 inches of rain, I don't think there's going to be much complaint, and at least that will do some good with regards to alleviating the dry conditions. Meanwhile, for the next 7 days, let's put up the 7-day rainfall forecast totals. They will be substantial in western North Carolina, northeast Georgia, western South Carolina, on down to the Florida Panhandle, especially along the Florida Panhandle where there's a patch there of 7 to 10 inches right along the immediate coast. The central Gulf Coast is getting a bit of a break from the rains that have been there for the past several weeks. Now anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches from southeast Texas east to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And then out in the west, WPC has pushed up a 1 inch, some 1 inch plus rain amounts, Joe, all the way up to north of LA. And getting it to some, on the Mexico side and down the Baja Peninsula with the tropical moisture and the rains from Hurricane Kaye in the coming days, with 3-4 inch amounts pushing northward. But that's a substantial amount of rain being indicated for Southern California. If that winds up verifying, That's a big plus for them. And even showery rains extending up into Nevada and even further north up into California. So some good news because we've had all those rains in the Southwest, but California's been left out of a lot of it, and it's taking a tropical storm to give them a little bit of drought relief.
I looked at the discussion, the Los Angeles National Weather Service discussion, and they waited until like the very end of the discussion to even allude to Kaye. And what they did say was, well, it's going to be taking a track up across the Baja, and we'll wait on National Hurricane Center and other sources, other factors as to just how much we may see at the moment. Whatever if we did make a forecast as to the amount, it would probably be incorrect, and it'd probably be better just to wait until we get closer to the event. So they certainly have an eye on it. They don't want to make any commitments just yet as to just how much. Although anything more than a cup full of water or a cup full of rain would certainly be substantial, considering what they have seen so far this spring and summer season in the Los Angeles and Southern California area in terms of precipitation.
Yeah, they are more bullish, by the way, than the 12Z GFS. We're going to come back to the east in a minute, but since we started talking about Hurricane Kaye, I might as well keep going. But you can see the rainfall here. Now, this is through Sunday, so at that point, Kaye will have taken a turn to the left long before it makes it up to say San Diego or parallel to San Diego.
And for people who are new to the chat board or new to the show and are saying, well, how come if the storm is taking a track right up along through the Baja, why doesn't it continue all the way up into Los Angeles? And the reason, you look at the map that Joe has on the screen right now, and notice, if you will, that Washington and Oregon and Idaho and much of northern Utah and Nevada, northern sections of California are pretty much devoid of any kind of significant precipitation. And the reason is that there's a huge ridge, a high-pressure ridge up across the Pacific Northwest. And so as the hurricane or as the tropical system moves northward and runs into that ridge, the ridge is going to say, you've gotten as far north as you're going to get. Now it's time to steer you out to the ocean, out over the away from the Southern California coastline. And so that is the reason why the storm is not going to come all the way up and directly hit Los Angeles, which would be an incredible rarity. But that huge high, that high pressure ridge, is again going to block off Kaye from getting up into that area in Southern California, as Joe just scribbled there with his red crayon to show you the eventual movement, the eventual track taking it north and then steering it away to the north and west, away from Southern California.
Yeah, a little bit different than yesterday in terms of the upper air. The ridge is not quite as strong. And also another difference is that there's a short wave that's dropping down into Montana. You see where all that blue is. That actually weakens the ridge as it's moving northwestward parallel to the coast. And then the short wave pulls out and the ridge starts to strengthen again. And that's what makes it do that hook where it goes out more to the west. The thing is, the ocean water temperatures there, once you get north of 25 degrees north, are pretty cold. And this would weaken quite a bit. That was the 12Z run, by the way. I'm going to take a look and see. Couldn't have enough of the 18Z run when I looked at it a minute ago for the rainfall. I want just to see what it does with the positioning here. This run on the 18Z, it's a little bit closer to the west coast of the Baja Peninsula, and it looks like it gets a little further north before it makes that left-hand turn. And on the 18Z run, Joe, it actually pushes. It actually has a couple of showers sneaking all the way up the coast as far north as San Francisco, which would be really interesting to see. Ideally, in terms of rainfall, you want to see it. It's a double-edged sword here because it's a tropical system, and assuming that it weakens, which it will do even if it were to go parallel up the coast all the way up. If you want to see a maximum input in terms of heavy rain for Southern California and into the Southwest, you'd have to see this thing kind of straddle the coast all the way up to at least the latitude of San Diego before it made any kind of left turn. It's not impossible if that shortwave in Montana is a little bit stronger. You could wind up getting this thing to go a little bit further to the north before it makes the hook to the left, but we'll see. Meanwhile, let's shift to the east back home. And you can see the GFS tonight. Actually, the GFS, Joe, lines up fairly well with the radar, with showing the rain areas from Maine down into Virginia. A bit, perhaps a little overzealous over central New Jersey there, but it's close. And then tonight, this is at 2 a.m. Now, see, at 2 a.m. in South Jersey, if you're south of 195, it won't be doing very much down into Delaware. So if you're expecting it to be raining, if you're from there, if you're expecting it to be raining at that hour, you might be a little bit disappointed. But after 2 a.m., it rapidly fills in, and you can see that the patches. This is the, by the way, this is the radar presentation of the GFS. You can see the patches of the yellow and the darker browns showing up in eastern PA, northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, western Massachusetts, and the dark greens over Long Island and much of central and north Jersey, down into Delaware. And there's your wave right in northern Chesapeake Bay. And that, again, is going to be the key to all of this. This is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The back edge now beginning to pull out of eastern PA. And then by tomorrow evening, the back edge, northwest Connecticut to Poughkeepsie, northwest Jersey, 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning. The only thing I would say is that even though the main area of rain will pull out in those time frames that I mentioned, there probably will still be some showery, patches of rain or drizzle into Wednesday afternoon, because you still have an east wind. You've got the low that drops all the way down well off the Delaware coast, but you're still going to have an onshore wind. So we'll probably have weather conditions are going to be very slow to improve until this whole thing can bodily move out, and that probably doesn't happen until Wednesday night or Thursday.
And by then, I think we'll be home free with nice weather. Not only just dry weather and some sunshine, but also the humidity should take a noticeable dip as well. So some nice weather is looming for the end of the week into next weekend. But again, in order to get it, I guess we're going to have to make payment with all this cloudy, wet weather that we have upon us right now. By the way, Joe, just to give you an idea just how unusual or how rare it is for any kind of a tropical system to make landfall in the state of California. From what I've been able to find here, the last and only tropical storm to make landfall in California since the dawn of the 20th century was on September 24th, 1939.
Yes.
A hurricane approached the Los Angeles area, but lost hurricane strength just before making landfall at San Pedro as a tropical storm.
Now I'm looking at the European, which the European, by the way, is a little bit further to the west and hooks it out sooner, bringing just a couple of patches of showers into Southern California, but nothing to write home about. So it'll be interesting to see if the if that model winds up catching up to it. And by the way, might as well go. Let's go to the. Let me bring up the satellite of Kaye, and then we'll go back. Give me a moment here to get to this. This is the Eastern East Pacific, I guess. Is that South Pacific? Yeah, the Eastern East Pacific. That should be the right one. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about the rest of our tropics here. I always, like I said yesterday, I always love the pictures of tropical storms in the Pacific. They always look so much more vibrant in terms of the development than they do on the Atlantic side for some reason. But you can see how well developed Kaye is on the satellite loop here. Well off the coast of Mexico, but there's so much tropical moisture that's out there. I mean, it's just a ton of it. And it's going to be moving on a north-northwest course parallel to the coastline once it reaches Baja California. So that's going to be something we'll be keeping, certainly a watch on here over the next couple of days. Here's Hurricane Kaye's official forecast from the Hurricane Center and their track, and they have tropical storm watches up for the lower part of the Baja Peninsula at the moment. You can see they strengthen it to a hurricane very soon. In fact, it actually is a hurricane. I'm sorry, I take it back. It actually is. It is a hurricane. Top winds are 80 miles an hour, 15.9 north, 107.8 west, moving northwest-northwest at 10. It's going to turn more north-northwest at time as it responds to that weakening ridge to the north. And then you can see by keeping it offshore, and then by noon Friday they weaken it down to a tropical storm, and that's where it begins to hook up to the left. So again, at least on the angle of heavier rains making it up into Southern California, the track would need to be close to the coast when it gets to 30 north. So basically where they have the positioning, it would need to be at least 120 or 150 miles further to the west for significant rains to get into Southern California, which is something that the new GFS has indicated. We'll see how the models follow along over time. Now let's look at Earl or Oil. And Earl, which I think will be a hurricane in short order also if the satellite trends continue. 22.2 north, 65.2 west, and the top winds there are 65 miles an hour, now moving northward or say west of due north at 6 miles an hour. The track hasn't really changed very much, moving along 65 and then turning it to the right, passing far enough south and east of Bermuda where it's a minimal issue, and then strengthening it to a major hurricane as it goes northeast from there. Joe, one of the big things that's made a difference here with regards to what's going on here is the fact that, if you remember back to last week where the GFS was kind of rushing Earl up and out, and some of the models were having, particularly the European, were having trouble even developing Earl. But, we've had this kind of hurricane block out there, I guess, if you want to call it, because Danielle's been, up until today, Danielle was stationary out in the central Atlantic, and Earl is much further south than where it was forecast to be. That's kept the ridge off the East Coast intact and slowed this front down to a large extent. And that has been that's the reason why we're getting the rain the way we're going to get it overnight and tomorrow, because the fact that Earl is kind of holding up the wall of the ridge, and then once that wall breaks down, then you're going to start to see everything start to pull out on Wednesday.
That's a good point to mention, that if it were not for Earl, we would probably be just looking at a simple frontal passage of a storm of weather front moving on down from the north, sweeping on by, bringing a bit of showers our way, either this evening or into later tonight, but pretty well all gone because the front would continue to progress southward out of our area. Dry air would come back in, and everything would, and that pretty much would be it. But thanks to Earl holding things up, as you said, Joe, this movement of the front is much, much slower, and as a result, we're seeing a lot more in the way of rain and shower activity. So we can thank Earl in part for producing all of this precip that we're seeing now, and and once I should point out also that later on in the week, as Earl finally lifts away to the north and northeast, we'll get into a flow behind it. It'll be well out to sea, but still enough so that it'll be producing a rather dry and more pleasant flow with not much lower humidity, lower dew points, and that sets the stage for a spell of nice weather here later in the week into the weekend. So it's ironic. Earl is responsible right now for all the wet weather, but it's also going to be responsible later on in the week for setting the stage for a spell of very nice weather in time for your upcoming weekend.
Yep. I drew a few circles here to point out. So this is Earl, and you'll notice inside that second circle, you're seeing a really solid burst of convection occurring in the last 2 or 3 hours. And that to me is signaling that perhaps Earl is now getting ready to strengthen to become a hurricane. Also, would like to point out that there's a tropical wave that's off the African coast that actually doesn't look half bad or not too shabby, as I like to say. That's likely to develop into a tropical storm as well over the next 4 or 5 days, and eventually, depending on what model you look at, you can look at the GFS, which kind of has eventually Earl absorbs it, or you look at the European, which does all sorts of crazy things out in the Atlantic. And there's another strong tropical wave that's still back in Africa. And the European, in about 7 days, has it moving off the coast as a well-developed system that it may even be a tropical storm before it reaches the Cabo Verde Islands. The model's been showing that for the last 4 or 5 runs now, and then taking it to the west from there. So that's one we'll probably would like to keep our eyes on over time. And with respect to Earl, why don't we check out, for those of you who don't know, if you go to Tropical Tidbits, if you go to Aircraft Recon, you can actually take a look and see there's a mission there right now. And the last pressure, the first fix, Joe, was 998, and the plane icon has just flown. It's flying east to west. So just in case you can't see it, the plane icon is this way. So the plane itself just finished this route here. Okay, so this is how I'm putting these arrows in to show the direction of when it started the flight. So on the upper left, that's where it came in. The wind barbs, the yellow wind barbs are 45 to 50 knots, and there's a bunch of red wind barbs of 55 to 60 knots on the west side. Then you go on the east side when it was coming in from the east before it made that first fix. There's a large belt of 45 to 50, several large belts of 45 to 50 knots, and then some 50 to 55 knot winds also being indicated with a few of those wind barbs. So the plane seems to be there at a time where the convection seems to be bursting. So we may see in the next couple of hours, as it does a second pass and a third pass, that the pressure may be dropping down into the mid 990s or maybe even in the low 990s. We'll see when it gets there. Ultimately, it's not a risk to the east coast of the United States, so we don't have to really worry. We certainly don't have to worry about that. And so that's a big plus.
Right. The worst would be swells next weekend. Sea swells, rough seas, rip currents generated by the presence of that storm, albeit many, many hundreds of miles offshore, but still close enough to generate that type of adverse weather.
Yeah, and here's the wide Atlantic view, and this is why I was just saying about how some of the weird things that the models are doing. So your tropical wave that's near the Cabo Verde Islands, or will be tonight into tomorrow morning, actually strengthens into a depression or even a tropical storm, just judging from the pressure. And then you see Earl on the GFS anyway, moves on out to the northeast and then just sort of shears it. That system just gets sheared apart. It doesn't really show too much of what the European's been doing. It does show a tropical wave out in the central Atlantic, the middle of next week. So maybe it's starting to see something there. The European, Joe, I don't know if you may not have seen this, but I'll bring up the Europeans Atlantic thing. It was so weird when I looked at this. So I want the low off the East Coast. So this is Wednesday morning. You got Earl, okay? So here's Earl, all right? Hold on, let me get my little pen going here. So there's Earl. Here's a low off the East Coast. This is Danielle, which is out in the Atlantic by Wednesday morning. I can't get the latitude and longitude. That doesn't seem to want to come up. And then, of course, you've got this new thing behind it that's west of the Cabo Verde Islands. Okay. So you actually have 4 features here that we're looking at. And also a nice looking storm that's moving into just south of Ireland, but that's not a tropical system.
Right.
Okay. So now watch what happens with Earl. First of all, the Earl and the East Coast storm, East Coast low, I should say. So Earl kind of inches along to the north, then goes north-northeast. The East Coast system, usually the tropical system gets absorbed by the non-tropical system. In the Europeans' case, it's the other way around. And then it's just Earl. You could see here, this is by Friday. Here's the new one that's off the Cabo Verde Islands. This small feature here that's moving northwestward. And Earl just kind of it goes northeast, then goes north, and then suddenly, for some reason, it breaks off another system in the southwest, to the southwest of it. Look at that. Now, that's what's left of this, this coastal low as sort of a separate identifiable feature, and it separates and forms into its own what could be a tropical storm northeast of Bermuda late next weekend or early next week. It's very bizarre. And by the way, while all that's going on, here comes the low off the African coast on next Sunday. And you can see there's a 999 low passing right south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and then it just sort of marches along to the west and starts to deepen. So there's a hurricane. You don't get too many hurricanes that actually form near the Cabo Verde Islands. Every once in a while you do get one, but the Europeans been kind of signaling at this. So I'd be curious. I'd be curious a week from now if that's going to be there. That would be interesting if that winds up happening. But very, very bizarre European view of all these systems running around.
Yep. And you look at this, you look at just for the last few days, how the tropical waters have just woken up almost automatically. And I mean, not just slowly stirring awake. I mean, boom, it is active now. So much so, you look back just a week ago.
Yeah.
The waters were dead. And now here we are a week later, and everything is as if we have not yet gone through any long-term spell of no tropical activity. It's quite amazing the difference in just what a difference only a few days makes. By the way, ironic that it is raining now. Very ironic, because since record keeping began in Central Park in 1869. The 5th of September, and that is what today is, the 5th of September, is the day least likely to have reported measurable rain at Central Park. Just 29 times, and today obviously will make it 30, but just 29 times prior to today in 153 years. The 2 other dates that are second, October 4th and October 17th, with rain reported in just 31 years out of the last 153. Now, interestingly, the first time rain fell on this date in Central Park in 1878, that was the most rain ever to fall on this date, 2.45 inches. After 8 years after 8 years in a row with no rainfall between 2013 and 2020, there was a small amount of rain that fell in 2021, just 2/100ths of an inch. And to give you the idea as to the difference between the date with the least amount of rain versus the date with the most amount of rain. And by the way, the reason why I look this way, on the screen here is that, once again, I'm charging my headphone and it's connected to the tower. And so I can't really go much further than this without breaking the connection. But in Central Park, 19% of the years have had measurable rain on September 5th. And the date with the most rain, or the date that has the greatest chance of seeing rain out of the 365 in the calendar, is July 29th. July 29th, 45% of all of the July 29ths have had measurable or have reported measurable rain. So Statistically, it shouldn't have rained today, Joe, because this is the date when it doesn't usually rain, but sometimes rules are made to be broken.
That's right.
And this is one of those days.
Mark G hit super chat, Joe. Soggy night. Thank you, Mark. Soggy night, and next day or so we'll take it just a stone throw away from Joe Rayo's home base. Glad my Reading peeps made it out good with the tornado warning earlier. Yeah, I didn't see anything on the Weather Service page regarding whether there was any consequence from that from that tornado warning. We probably saw rotation on the radar. I'm not surprised at all if that were the case. And by the way, I think Central Park got to 90 today. As David Schwartz pointed out, I think that was for the 25th time. So it needs to stop. And isn't the average last date of 90 September the 6th?
Well, what did you call for? You
20,
said that we would have
25.
25?
So it needs to stop right there at 25. Just stop.
Yes. No more. We don't need any more 90s.
I agree. I want to go back to the long. Let's just do some quick long range, and I think you're right. Once this system pulls out middle part of next week, and with Earl doing what it's doing, assuming that it does continue to be the case, that we will get into some nice, pleasant, lower humidity going forward. Just looking at the longer range upper air, you can see the troughing here in the east. And Earl is out there. Earl is out there south of Bermuda. You see the trough on Wednesday evening that is lined up from, say, New England southwestward into Louisiana. It's on the flattish side. But if Earl were not there, that whole trough would have just swung through, as Joe pointed out. Tonight's cold front would have been some showers and thunderstorms, maybe, and in some places probably not. And then everything would have just moved away to the northeast. So Earl actually helping us. The bottom of that trough cuts off over Louisiana late this week and into the weekend, so that might mean some more rain there for the central and western and maybe even the eastern Gulf Coast, and also places inland. There's a nice southerly flow that comes off the Gulf into Georgia and Alabama, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to wind up getting more rain. There's the short wave in Montana, and you can see Hurricane Kaye. Give you a little heads up here. So here's Kaye. Oh, wait a second. Let's draw. There's Kaye. Here's Earl. So we'll put an E for Earl. Kaye with the K. There's shortwave on Wednesday coming into the Pacific Northwest. Now here's your big upper high. If it was just to stay this way, this would not even be an issue. Kaye would be moving to the west-northwest, out into the Pacific, and that would be that. But the short wave to the north is going to crack the upper ridge and weaken it enough so Kaye keeps moving northward, and then the short wave swings into the Dakotas, and suddenly the ridge starts to build back. So the thing to look for, again, for the folks out in the west and in Southern California, Southern Arizona, in that area, if that system dropping down into Montana is slower or stronger, that could cause Kaye to come up further north before I think it takes the left turn. And that'll be the ultimate determinant with regards to whether we get rains coming that far north. Next trough swings into the Great Lakes on Sunday. So it looks like it should stay dry through Sunday as the ridge along the East Coast just holds. You can see that what reflects Earl is south and east of Newfoundland. So Earl may still be having some sort of impact in terms of the timing of the next round of rain or showers, which will probably come early next week as a cold front and another trough swing through the eastern part of the United States. And after that, we get into some sort of, flat ridging systems dropping down from southern Canada and moving through southeastern Canada. Nothing really, too crazy, just sort of a flattish type flow. That's at least what the models are showing us today. We'll see what they show us in the coming days. But it's amazing, Joe. We went a whole hour here. With just a lot going on. I mean, it's always just it's a lot going on over a lot of different parts of the U.S. And at least from the standpoint of a weather show, this is probably the most we've had to talk about in the last 2 months.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, how often can you just see, say sunny and high? Oh, speaking of which, I didn't even talk about this. Hang on a second. But how long can you go sunny high? Sunny today, high in the low 90s. Clear tonight, low in the low 70s. Chance of a shower or a thunderstorm, and that's it. You can only go so far.
We went an hour and 40 minutes yesterday.
Yes, we did. Let me bring up the watches and warnings map just to show the extent of what's going on with the flash flood watches. Eastern half of Kentucky, southern Ohio, a small portion of southeastern Indiana, almost all of West Virginia, northwestern Virginia and Johnny Quest land, almost all of Pennsylvania except the extreme northwest, almost all of New Jersey except the extreme southeast, the Hudson Valley going about halfway up, not quite to I-90, all of Connecticut, Long Island, Rhode Island, eastern half of Massachusetts, southeastern New Hampshire, and coastal Maine, all under flash flood watches. The watches that were up further south into Georgia, Alabama, those are and Tennessee, those have come down now, at least for now. We've got a lot of excessive heat going on in the west. So why don't I just really quick? Let me see if I can bring up the observation map here, and let's go to obs. Change this to max temperature. Let's add U.S. states, U.S. counties. Come on. There we go. Slowly but surely it's loading. You can see the high temperatures today. Up the Hudson Valley, Joe, Kingston only got to 68, Poughkeepsie 75. So that's where the front had its biggest impact. And meanwhile, it was middle to upper 80s and probably a few 90s. I don't have enough density on this up yet in terms of numbers. Let's see. If Central Park got to 90, Newark had to get to 90. I mean, it just had to. And now, of course, I've got no numbers on the map. Oh, there you go. Newark, 88 for a high. 88 for LaGuardia. Right? Max temperature 88. 88 for Newark. 89 for Middlesex County. I don't see a 90, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I think if David Schwartz said it, it had to be. He's usually good about giving good statistics. Let's go out to the west and see what's going on in terms of temperatures, because California, having a big problem here with the heat and with power outages and everything else. So it's 5:32, so they should have reached their maxes today. 113, Joe, in Caltrans, California, wherever that is. 108 in San Ynez, Y-N-E-Z. I don't know how you pronounce Ynez or Inez. 90 in Camarillo Airport, not too far from Oxnard. Rose Valley, further inland at 100. West of Los Angeles in Burbank, beautiful downtown Burbank, Joe, 106 at the Bob Hope Airport. Let's go further up the coast. Let's check out what's going on in San Frisco. 100 degrees at Hayward Air Terminal. 111 at the Napa County Airport. That's hot. Oh, my God. 112 in Concord Buchanan Field. 113 in Livermore. I'm going really tight here. See if we can get. I'd be curious as to what the airport is.
Wasn't that Ricky's boss in I Love Lucy? Mr.
Yeah.
Livermore?
No, Mr. Livermore. Who was Mr. No, Mr. Livermore was the tutor who Lucy hired to teach everybody English, so that when little Ricky was going to be born, they'd be speaking perfect English.
Right. And there are two words that you should never use. One is swell and one is lousy.
No, okay. I thought okay was one of the. Was it? Tell us no, you're right. Right. Tell us the swell word first and the lousy one second. Oh, boy. Shouldn't have done that. You okay?
Yes. Now I am.
I'm sorry. All right.
You shouldn't get me. You shouldn't get me to start laughing.
Oh no, David corrected me. I'm sorry. Yesterday was 90 in Central Park. Today it got to 89. Thank you, David. Most appreciated. Still got to the 25 though, which was nice. And Joseph Gallo hitting super chat tonight, saying thank you always for providing us an opportunity to enjoy the weather together. Enjoy a cigar, Joe C, Joe R. Enjoy some elderberry. So yes, definitely. So I think what we're going to do is normally we'd go to Briller Jeopardy, and I think I have one here. But you know what, Joe? Your voice needs some rest. So why don't we hold it for tomorrow? Does that work for you?
I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to disagree on that.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll hold it for tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, tonight for all the super chat hits. It was nice to see a nice crowd on the show tonight. I think we got to 200 at one point, which was really nice. We haven't had that in quite a long time. So thanks for being here. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.
Night-night, folks.
Okay.